everyone, it's Creative Senses with Donna, and today we're going to do our part 3 in the Crayola versus Prismacolor challenge. So I have a rose for you today. I didn't do the water droplets like we had talked about in the last part 2 in our last challenge with the Crayola and Prismacolors. So right now we're going to compare Vaseline and Gamsol, that odorless mineral spirits that's made for artists to use with colored pencils. It's a little safer, like you wouldn't want to breathe it in or anything. You should put a little bit in a dish, and you'll see more about that as I color through these challenges, and you'll find out in the end which one came out the best and what I decided to do with my Crayola colored pencils today for the rose. And then the next episode, which is part 4, we'll look at 2 examples, the Prismacolors doing the rose from our Botanical Garden set, and doing those droplets like dew or rain that would be collecting on the rose. So we're going to talk about that, experiment with that, with both the Crayola and the Prismacolors in part 4. So let's get started and find out what happened. I wanted to give you an idea of how you could draw a rose. And I was thinking this would be a great opportunity to talk about how to use a grid. And you can print a picture with a grid on it. I did find one on the internet. And if you had a picture, you know, like from Unsplash or Pixabay or something that you wanted to use, I didn't use this picture, but I thought this is a great example of how you could put a grid over a rose, and then you outline it, all of your petals, to try and draw it. And as you do that, you're able to see in what part of the square does your petal go, or your leaf go. Where does it turn and how does it move? So if you were going to trace this, you would know that at this square, if we just did this one, you could come down and follow along that, and it would start sort of in the corner and then gradually go down, but it wouldn't be like a straight X, it's going to curve. So you're going to start here and go out a little bit this way and then come back in. And you can see that the rose right here is entirely in that square except for this one corner. So you would want to leave that one empty. This picture is from Unsplash, and I thought it would be a great example if we wanted to try beads of water on it. But I'm also going to be doing the test. So we might wait on the water droplets because we're going to test Vaseline and Gamsol and rubbing alcohol on our roses. We're going to do a page with both the colored pencils from Crayola and the set from Prismacolor, the Botanical Gardens one that we've been using as we added to our repertoire, and see which one will give us a nice underpainting. So I wanted to show you the idea of the grid. Now I'm doing it much smaller here. And here I have a little picture of a flower, and I kept erasing. The greatest thing about having a grid is you can decide how wide do I want it, how many squares would that be. If I wanted to make it bigger, I could add a square and decide how many squares is the middle going to be. This is still the 5. So I put everything in a 5. What if it got a little bit bigger on the bottom, whatever I'm drawing, I just go out another square or half a square. So in this one, you could see I went with 1 square and I kept everything in that 5 square concept. And then my leaves that went out, I don't want to have it totally symmetrical because it's not very interesting. It looks kind of fake to me. And of course, I wouldn't do it straight up and down. I would do sort of an angle. It would be more interesting to do the rosebud as if it was sticking out of the bush and you could see it, and it was a little bit angled. So what I started with was this one. Gave myself an idea of kind of where do I want the petals and how do I want it to look. Then I moved to creating a bigger one. So I want to do it on this size, and I want to put 4 on a page. So after I draw my rose and get an idea of what I'm looking for, I'm going to scan it and crop it and then put it on my paper, and I'm going to print it on a piece of cardstock so I can do my experiment. Now, if I was just thinking like, well, actually, we could try it on the cardstock, but I also wanted to show you what it would look like on watercolor. So I'm going to use my light pad. I just use a Crayola light pad as my light box, and you could use a window to trace over it and put it on watercolor paper. So I'm going to start with this, and you can see how many squares I decided to do for this one. The center is 6 here, so this 6. And then if I wanted to go out, I'm going out to the 10. So I'm using 6 and 10 this time. Now I wanted these, I drew the petals, but you could count, like I drew the way I wanted them to look. But you could count, this is the center. Right here is the center. So a lot of times we want to do things that are a little less symmetrical, but for today and for this experiment, we're going to make it fairly easy. So this is our center line, and you can count how many squares go out, but you could see that if you were looking at this as a circle, like if you drew with circles without the grid, you would be able to say that this is kind of like an oval. And if you drew another oval, where would that go? If you went the whole side, you can see that there are ways that you can look at this as a shape and then decide. So then I did this I outlined it in the fine point Sharpie, and then I moved on to my next one. So for this, and I'm still using my drawing pad like from our last things because I don't want marker to go through the paper onto something else. I decided, where do I want those lines? So I started out tracing with my pencil this picture, just these 2 side petals, and now I wanted to put leaves on it. And I looked at a couple of different pictures and I made up this rose. So I wanted 2 petals of the leaves because we have a bud and it's still sort of enclosed. So this would be my petal. And this time I did the same thing. I'm like looking, now this is 10 and this is 12. And I'm looking at this idea of my leaves are going to go out. And I made this one go a little past, and this one is a little less than the 10 because I think that's much more interesting. And if we had turned it to the side, it would almost look like, you know, naturally this leaf is starting to fall out a little bit. So when we change our composition, that's what we're looking at. So I took my pencil and I drew those. Then I drew what I wanted these to look like, and you could probably see on here, I erased, I tried different compositions and erased the petals because this is not our exact composition. It's not the good paper. We could do whatever we want on this one and keep changing it to see. So I did one where I tried that front drop petal and then just a petal on the side. You could do it however you want, but I thought for the purpose of our coloring and testing the Vaseline and the Gamsol and rubbing alcohol to see if any of those will blend for our first coat. I was going to make them bigger so that I could have different spots to do that test on. And they were large enough to get an idea of what they look like, that we could compare them next to each other. So you can see that I started out making a big leaf that was wider here. And because I had drawn with pencil our original flower petal behind here, now I have to erase those. Make sure I have all of my fine point Sharpie drawing on here, so you could see that. Now we're starting to look a little bit better like a natural composition. As you learn to balance these shapes, which is what I guess I'm trying to suggest, is that you look at these as different shapes and how could you do it, what point would you start. You'll be able to start doing this like, oh, I want that a curve. It's not exactly a C. This isn't exactly a V, but it is like a very wide and smooth curved V. You know what I mean? Like you'll find these shapes in your composition, and those will start to make more sense to you, and you'll know what you want to draw. So the more that you practice drawing, and letting yourself make mistakes and figuring out what you want to do, the better you're going to get at it. So I wanted to put like a center of a flower now, and put some more petals in here, and sort of like we have a center rounded petal back there, and then just leave it because I didn't want to get too complicated for this drawing, because you could put another larger petal behind it. But for right now, we're going to go with just these simple shapes and see what we can do. So I'm going to erase again as soon as your Sharpie is dry, by the way. So depending on what paper you're doing it on, you would want to wait. Otherwise, you smear your Sharpie, which I have done numerous times probably. And I can use my large eraser and erase all of those lines. And now I can go to my light pad, and you can see this is just a Crayola light pad. So as long as you're using the size of a sheet of paper, you're going to always be good. So what I'm going to do is I am going to maybe, let's see if I do this too all the time. It's a little bit off because I cut it out of the graph book. I can figure out how easily, when I fold my paper in four, I can fit a flower in each one of those corners. So I've divided my paper into four. I can see if I can fit four on a page. I am going to do, I think I'm going to do two, and we're going to turn it. So I have the ability to now take this drawing and place it however I want it to go on my piece of paper so that I can get a good picture and then take that and scan it. So I'll be right back with our next paper. So as you can see, I started coloring, and I have designated my two roses so you could tell what the difference was, but I have the Crayola one and the Prismacolor, and I'm going to try and duplicate everything that I'm doing for each one with my set of colors. So for right now, what I'm going to use to make my rose is the Crayola. We're doing the Crayola side here and the Prismacolor here, orange. This is the violet purple. This is the regular red. There is a red orange, but since I'm trying to like match up sort of what I have in the Prismacolors, this is what I'm going to do. And this one is just a regular yellow. And then for the Prismacolor, I had this lemon yellow, which is a little bit brighter, as you could tell. The pomegranate, which is the only red that came with my botanical kit. So that's kind of a dark red. A dahlia purple, which is not the same exactly as the violet purple, but we're going to see what happens. And then this pale vermilion, which is a little bit more like an orange. So here I am trying a couple of different things with both of them. I have to tell you that the Prismacolor, that botanical set does not have like a red. So the vermilion is like an orange, the yellow is beautiful, but this pomegranate, I don't know if this is gonna work at all for this rose. And what I thought about trying was different ways to make colors. And so I have some orange and yellow here to see if that was an underpainting, if I could add some red to it and maybe like mix the colors together and it would look sort of red. If I put a little bit of this vermilion with the orange, will it actually mix together? So I'm going to go over this. I tried red and green because you know that makes our darker green or even brown. So I wanted to see if it would do that. And I think that I'm going to print another sheet and then I'm going to have a go at it with a little more, maybe a different color for the Prismacolors for the challenge. And this one, you can see that I took the Vaseline. I still have some Vaseline on my Q-tip, cotton swab. And this one is the Vaseline. You don't want to put really too much on, but at the moment I'm kind of putting it on heavy to see what I can get. And then we'll have to see if I can color over that again. So this is just the red and some orange. So this part of it, this half is that, and then the other half, I should close my jar before I spill it, of Gamsol, which is a professional odorless mineral spirit. So that's kind of nice if you're working with a lot of things you're not breathing in. You're still getting fumes, but you're not breathing in that smell. And this one, I used a brush that's now designated, it's older, designated for the Gamsol. So I'm gonna have to like tape it to it or something so I don't forget. But you can see that it did mix them together. So I'm gonna try again with my Prismacolors and see what happens with them when I try the Q-tip with some regular petroleum jelly. I'm not going to put on too much, but I got it coated. And I'm going to just try right here and see if I can smear. See, the color is coming off on the tip of the cotton swab. I kind of realized that this wasn't working as well and decided I would just look at, so you could see even how much of the pigment is now on the cotton swab because I put it over there. It's a good thing to do to experiment with before you do like on a final project, even though I know this one is not, you know, like this is cardstock, it's not the best paper. So I put some on here and I kind of dabbed off a little bit of it, but you can see, look at how beautiful the color gets, and it looked so purple and now it looks red. And the parts where the green are, you can see it is a much darker color, but look at how well it mixes. So so far I was not getting that on the Crayolas. So you could do this and you could blend all of these colors. And the next project I'm going to do is doing one of these roses on watercolor paper so that you can see how much better watercolor paper would be for that. So I'm going to go back to this one again and see if I can add more color to this one, get it saturated enough where I think that maybe we can get this to blend with the Gamsol and blend with the orange. So I put on a pretty heavy coat with the orange. I'm not quite burnished, but you do need to have enough color on the paper for it to blend the colors, to melt them. So I'm going to put on a little bit more of my yellow, and I'm going to put that purple right here for our shadow and see if we can get a nice blend of all of those colors. I know that we could get a pretty good blend if I took my time and put very light layers of these colors to mix them together. So we're going to give it a shot. I'm going to take a new Q-tip because I don't want to contaminate our experiment or contaminate the petroleum jelly. So on this side, we're going to do the Vaseline and see we are getting some color off and see if we can melt those colors together a little bit. It's working a bit. So that's this side. And then I'm going to take the Gamsol. And I could tell you that I pretty much have like decided I know what I like. So actually this is not working bad. So I put more layers on it than what I tried over here. And it is smearing it a little bit. It is, now I'm thinking, you can see I'm pushing the color around, that there's a possibility that the Gamsol would work. It's definitely better than the petroleum jelly. Baby oil works pretty well, just that I got sick of the smell because it sounds like, it smells like baby powder. So now I'm going to try this one and see if we can get, my brush was a little wet. I did dab off some excess so it wasn't too wet, but you can see even on the Crayola, it did kind of smear the color, so we'll have to check it again when it dries. This isn't bad, but obviously you needed to have a lot more of the Crayola pencil colored onto there to get that smooth of a color. And I just want to show you that the back is very wet. So the cardstock, this is going through onto my other paper underneath, which, like I said to you every single time, make sure that you have something underneath to catch that. So it is sort of working, and you'd have to wait and see when, because it almost looks transparent inside here. I can see where my white paper is and where it isn't. We can go over that again when it's dry, and that was the whole point of trying to figure out if this would work. I did not like the Vaseline at all for the Prismacolors. So now I'm going to try this section with the Gamsol again. And I dabbed off a little of my Gamsol so it's not too wet. And see if we can mix that color pretty well, but we might have needed a few more coats to make that an even color. But you can see how that will smooth out the colors. So from what I can tell here, you could try baby oil, which sort of works on cardstock. I still think that you need to have a lot of pigment on the paper to make it smear and blend together. I still am on the idea that I really think that I would rather burnish colors together. Although I like the way that this orange has come out, I think I would have to put a lot of the pigment down in order to get this smooth of a color. It would need 4 layers probably of color. And then, so I'm looking at it now, and this is fairly dry, that side. This one is still pretty wet. The bottom isn't very wet. I could say, like, what if I wanted to add, and these are the Prismacolor set, orange to here, and go over the top of this and brighten it up. So I'm going to make our Prismacolor, this pomegranate, brighten it up and give it a different color. I know that this is a petal, but I'm just experimenting on this right now. So now I've done the orange, and I do know that, and I could see this happening already, that when you, I don't know if you can see that, but the tip of the pencil is sort of melting. So if you go over the wet part where the Gamsol is still wet, it's gonna kind of melt your pencil. So I suppose that would be a great way to get that tip again that point that you want to have on the end without wasting your pencil by continually sharpening it. But I can see where now if I put a lot of orange on there with, even though there was green in here, if I put a lot of orange on top of that, my red is starting to, my pomegranate is starting to look more red. So let's see again. So I'm turning my pencil as I do this to try not have the whole thing melt as I go, because the Gamsol is still wet here. But I can see it's going down much nicer, being that it's sort of wet, and I am getting a little bit of a melting on my pencil. So that part I almost like. I'm not sure that I like painting it at the end, but we'll see. So I'm going to go back over this with my orange, and I should be able to mix these colors right on the paper because it's still wet with that Gamsol. And so now my pomegranate, which is really kind of a purpley red, has a little blue in it, is starting to look a little more like, oh, I better spin that again because I could see the melted part. Now you can see that it's kind of blending on the tip of my pencil. So I have to make sure that I keep that in mind when I go to do something and I just want the orange down, that my tip is really good. So I'm still back to, I think I would rather, except for some of the colors, which the red in the Crayola box is not really that great. I still would rather have, and I'm wiping off my pencil on a paper towel so that I don't have as much of the contamination of the other color on it. That if I do this and we try again to put a little more Gamsol on the top, can I mix this even better? And I was starting to feel like, oh, well, now I'm kind of liking it. I don't know if this is the best. I'm kind of mixed on my pencil tip, so I'm wiping that off on my paper towel and trying to see what I could get out of that. And if I put a little purple at the bottom here to create my shadow and in the crease. So this part of the petal is tipping over, like tipping out, and that's why it's highlighted too. So now I'm putting some purple on it. So let's see what we get out of the Gamsol. So I dipped and I did pat on, and you want to go light to dark, so you would want to make sure that you didn't contaminate or put too much Gamsol on the top of that. But you could see it is mixing the colors because the red is covering the yellow a little there, the orange. So you would want to make sure you didn't contaminate that purple too much. But I guess you can see where it does start to look like a little more paint, and you can see how much pigment is now on my brush, which I'm cleaning off on a paper towel with some more Gamsol, so that I don't have too much of a staining that will come off on something else. So I like it, but as you can see, you know, the cardstock is not going to do as well for that. So I guess I could do one on the cardstock if that's what you have, and I think I might just skip the Gamsol for this because I really don't think it's a great idea for cardstock. It's not made for this much wetness, like the watercolor paper, which is recommended that you do that on like a hot press watercolor or a cold press, which is textured. So I almost want to do my experiment here again on this one to see if the Vaseline with just the Prismacolors would really work if I put a lot of color on here. So I am sort of pressing down because, as usual, I just want to get the test over and get to a real project and do something that I like, because I find this annoying. I do. When it's not working. it is important to test and draw just like we were doing before. So now I put some orange in. I want to brighten up this little and give myself a little bit of a highlight at the top. So I'm adding some yellow there, which is going to be a little brighter. And then I'm taking some Vaseline and seeing if we can smear that a little. So I wanted to see, like, I'm testing it to see like how much is coming off. I think I kind of like that, although I think for Crayola, I would probably do that. I'm going to see if it works like the Vaseline works well like this for the layering process. Will it melt my Crayola? A little bit. You definitely get more of a painterly look with the Vaseline already on there as I put on another layer of color. And I'm kind of liking that. I will wipe off all of my pencils to make sure that there's not more Vaseline when I go to color again, but I do like the way that's blending. So we want to make sure that we don't put a lot of Vaseline on here. Even though we're using cardstock, I think I would wait until after it was totally burnished. And I was happy with my colors in the layering, and then I would try putting the Vaseline on it and trying to smear those. Maybe less of the Vaseline would go through the paper, which we have this cardstock. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back in a second and with a new printout and see if I can make beautiful roses with the colors that I have here. And we can try the Vaseline at the end and see what happens, because I really do think the Gamsol is too wet for this paper. All right, so now I'm back and I've done some of my coloring. So you didn't have to watch me do all of that. And if you're interested in seeing me color and change colors and keep, I want to say, adjusting the color or trying to figure out what I want it to do, let me know in the comments. And next time I will tape through me doing all of the colors and switching. So as I was doing it, I really do like having a bit of the orange, like a brightness in the rose. So I wanted a little more of an orangey red, and with the Crayola, I'm working with what I was trying to do as comparable colors, or just picking 4 colors for the Crayola set, and then 4 colors for the red, the rose. This is what I'm using for the rose in the Prismacolor. So sometime later I will be doing another series, another part for this, and I'll show you what happened with blending the Prismacolors from the Botanical Garden set. And these are not really comparable colors, but like I said before, I was trying to like get you a set that would help you do those flowers and give you more options to add to Crayola, so you could combine both of those and actually create something cool. So I might do that in one of the later videos, but for the series that we're doing right now as sort of our competition, I'm using what we have. So I have a violet purple and this dahlia purple, which is not quite the same, and the red's not quite the same. So I'm trying to make, they're going to look a little bit different because the colors aren't exactly the same, but I'm trying to limit myself to 2 greens, which I will have 2 greens. I have a dark green and a light yellow green in the Crayola set, and I have the, let's see, the grass green and spring green. So this is the more natural green. There's an olive green that comes with this, but I'm not going to use the olive because I can't really compare any of the Crayola to an olive green. So I'm building things up, and sometimes when you're trying to combine colors and use other colors as your shadow or whatever, you're going to use something like a blue or a purple or a or even a darker red or a green. So what I decided to do for this experiment was to use the purple as my shadow for the rose also, as well as the leaf. But when I started to do it, I thought, you know what, the purple is there, but maybe I want to use a little bit of red. So you can see like this seems a little more purple. This is a little more red. I did numerous layers. I did some light green here and the lighter green here, the yellow green. And then I added some of the dark green. Then I added purple. And I'm doing, you know, light layers this whole time. And then after the purple, I put the dark green on again. Then I added some red. Because if I add red to this, it will sort of blend, or it will seem complementary to the rose. So when I went to, and I'm going to show you what I started to do with the red rose part of it. For this one, I did red first. And I had a little bit of orange as my light here to give that depth, to try and make that transition so this rose looks like it's coming out. I did this lighter, and then because this part of the petal is turning toward us, and if I put my composition up and down, I am actually looking at this like with a little bit of a tilt. So if the rose were out and leaning a little bit, this would be in the shadow. This would be in the shadow, this would be in the shadow, and of course, inside the rose would be shadows. I don't really like to use black for shadows unless it's necessary for something, but as for this, I'm putting the purple, the violet purple, as my shadow in here. So I can add another layer. For these, I did orange first, then I did red, I did yellow on the tips up here so that you would get some of that highlight because it's catching more of the light. It's closer to the sun and this is leaning. So this side has more shadow. So I put an orange layer down for all of these. Then I put red. Then I put this violet purple to kind of shade these in. And then after I do that, which this is now 2 layers of the purple, I'm going to go back in and do the red. So this one's really light, not as much orange, because it's going to be a darker center. And then I can come in and do some more red and try not to push too hard, but I do feel like the red is a little denser, harder pencil than the orange. The orange goes down like really easy. So I'm going to do some of the red, lightly highlight on top of that yellow. I don't want to like totally cover it, but you can already see now that it's a bit darker. And I'm going to need to put probably 3 or 4 layers of the red till we get to the point where it's almost burnishing. And it's getting pretty shiny. As you color over this, you the friction warms up the wax in the pencil and then it becomes shiny. So besides that, we're going to try the Vaseline on this. And then in the next part, in part 4, I'll show you what happened with the Prismacolor flower and how it turned out and see how the Vaseline will work for that one. So you could see that this got darker. It is more red, but I'm going to need to make that a bit deeper color. So I'm hoping that as I put more layers of the red on, that it will not only burnish it a little more, but it will make it darker. The red doesn't seem, I mean, it becomes more red, but it doesn't actually make the color darker. So I'm still going to need to add another layer of my violet purple and then do it again with the red. So you can see that as we do this, and I'm trying to do, you know, little circles and not push too hard. I am closer to my pencil now, so I am doing it harder than when I started. My first layers are always like out here and very light to get that those first layers down and get them to blend. Look, going lighter is going to be a lot better. So now I'm almost burnished there. I had a little bit of orange in here, but I'm not going to add orange anymore because orange is my highlight. So as I do these, I want to make sure that I remember that these are part of the shadow. Only the very tops of the rows are actually catching that light so much. So we want to create that dimension. And I forgot what they called it, like a... I really blanked on the word. The contrast, I guess I want to say. That there's some darks and some lights to create more depth to the picture. So I'm making this a little bit darker. I kind of left the line at the top as if it's curling up a little bit. And now I'm going to go over it again with the red. And now we're pretty close to burnishing the color. And I'm not going to be able to do much more to add the purple or blue or whatever to those. So you can see it's gotten quite a bit darker. I'm going to try and do the same thing again with this one, this next row of petals. I think that this design hopefully helps you learn a little bit about, you know, like the light and dark, the shadows that you want to make, the dimension that you want to make. If because I looked at a number of roses and I've drawn some roses that were pretty intricate. When they're so small, it's very hard with the pencil to create all of those little details, even with a pointy pencil, and it would be hard to keep track of. I realized that for me, it was hard to figure out which petal is which and which shape is the one that has, you know, is in the darker spot or whatever. So I thought this type of rose would be much easier to practice those concepts. I've been watching, and I keep trying to remember, I think it's called The Art of, The Art of Importance. Importance? I'm going to put it in the notes at the bottom in the description, because this is like The Art of Improvement. I knew it'd come to me. The Art of Improvement. There's this YouTube channel, and he has great videos, really interesting things to think about. I would say it's probably more toward a business level, you know, like trying to, it's not exactly talking about priorities or like how to do things. It's not like that, but it's talking about like kind of how we think and the way we do things and deciding that we want to be lifelong learners. And there was actually a video which I'm going to talk about what I think about the video and then link that one about creativity. I was just like, well, this is great. This is sort of what I'm talking about. And they even use some examples of artwork in there. Like if you want to get good at something, and one of the videos is about motivation. What is motivation? Like if you want to have what I call, because I've researched this for teaching, like a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. So you want to be learning all of your life. That's what he was talking about in the video. That creative people aren't afraid to fail, and they know that this, like the first time, just like I was saying, and I have said in other videos, the first time I try something, it may not come out perfectly the way I wanted to, that I have to remember that this is, you know, practice, not to put too much pressure on myself for completing it and have it, you know, like I'm going to sell it or something, or have great feedback from everyone. I mean, of course, I always send everything to my mom before it's probably even posted. I send everything to my mom, and of course she says it's beautiful. But my mom's always been a creative person too, and she kind of understands that. So I could sit in my studio, which I've gotten fairly well organized, not done yet, but I can sit in my studio and I could color or draw or paint like for 6 hours, 8 hours, I don't know. I would take little breaks, but I have to tell you, sometimes my husband's like, are you ever coming out of there? And sometimes that now is my Saturday. That's what I start doing on my Saturdays. Because I do work. But I was thinking, like, this does start to look fairly beautiful. I mean, we're starting to get some of those lights and darks and dimension to it. I really like now how this blended. I find that either the yellow or the orange are going to be great blenders in the end. So even if you see on this one, I still want to like make this a deeper color or maybe burnish it a little bit more to blend those colors together. But if I put orange over that, it automatically looks blended. I don't want to put yellow over the whole thing because that's going to change the color. And that's not what I wanted for this composition. My light areas I want to be more orange. And I really want to, I feel like I have like a light line right there. I don't want it to look light in the darkest spots. So I'm going to go back over that. And for some reason, this pencil leaves, it's almost like scratches it. It's almost like hatch marks. You can almost see it in here. I can't seem to get it flat and more smooth on one side, so it doesn't do that for me. But to kind of blend that in, that needed a little more depth to make this brightness stand out. And of course, we want to blend in and not have it be, this is not a stark contrast like a shadow would have, but just like a fading in of those colors. So you want to make sure that you're not drawing a line. Because I did, when I put these in, I did draw a circle. I filled a circle in because I wanted to make sure I remembered where I wanted my highlights to go. This, leaf would of course be darker on this side. And I want to make sure that it's going to look that way compared to this one. So while I might have some of these darks with the purple and red in here, I want this to mostly be light. So then I'm going to color some more and I will be back. I did a little bit more on this one too to try and maybe burnish and smooth this out. I did add another layer of the purple because I felt like it was not dark enough here. And I want this to be lighter, but I don't want it to be as light as this, which the sun might be hitting, and this doesn't. So then I even put, like I was saying, this pencil, this one and the red, have a tendency to leave lines. But I did leave a couple of those in this part so that it would blend better. It wouldn't look like a circle like I was talking about before. And I did that a little bit in here. So that will help give it a little texture too. And we'll see what happens when we do our Vaseline. And then I might even try, if it doesn't blend well, I might even try again coloring over with the red. But I feel like we've gotten a pretty good shadow dimension, level of colors, contrast. I do feel like this could be a little bit darker, so I'm going to try something different and use my dark green. Once I put all of these colors together, this shouldn't look as green as you might think, and actually darken this color a little bit more, because red and green kind of make brown, so I'm hoping it gives it a little more of a depth to it and a darkness. I can almost see a little brown. So I hope that that works so that that looks a little darker. And the funny thing is when I did these, I put orange first and then I put the purple, and it gave a much better blackish gray tone to make those darker than if I had added the red first. So I only did red on top of everything, and I think that that technique actually gave me more of a shadow that I would have liked for here or even here, which I'll just try it, that I didn't get on the other one. So if I had done orange and the violet purple first and blended those together underneath, I think that would have been a great foundation for making that shade, that shadow a little darker. So now I'm going to go back to my lighter colors, and I am going to do a little bit of shadow here. I'm going to try some of the purple and a little bit of the red, which I already have some red on here because I already went over a little bit when I was coloring the red, which was fine because I knew I was going to put some there. I wasn't as worried about it. And now it looks like it's blending more. So I have to tell you that when I went over this, it was fairly well burnished. Right now, I'm not getting that cross-hatching. I'm getting a nice blend of the green and the purple together because there's some tooth on the paper still as we're coloring. So let's give it a shot again with the green, and I'm going to do a dark green. Before, it had a layer of the yellow green, so a lighter green, and this yellow highlighted spot, and now I'm going over it with the dark green. So we have yellow green, then purple, then the dark green. And even this dark green has a tendency to make those lines, like I said. I can't seem to color it evenly. And I'm not sure if it's just me today or what. But I do like the level of color that I'm building up. I think it's pretty cool. I still, as I see the parts that have a little red in it, I do like it. So, and I do think that it brings these colors together when you do that. I would like more of a brown here, maybe a browner olive green or something there. So I don't know how I'm going to do the stem. This would be a little lighter, and then the stem would get darker. So I'm putting in a little red because I still think that the red works better for giving me the color that I want. I just needed a little of that purple to change the tone, to change it to a blue-green color more than just green. So I'm going to go back over this now. These should sort of match each other now, even though I'm making the top part of this leaf. The other video I kept calling the leaf the petal. I am giving it more dimension, but I can actually burnish with this color a little bit more. It will help me blend better. And I just can't wait to try the Vaseline to see what happens. So, you know, like, stay tuned. I mean, everybody pretty much has Vaseline. If you don't, it's a pretty cheap fix to get some. So I would recommend doing that. And the next time you're out and giving this a try and see what happens. So I am trying to do that, turning my pencil so I don't have to sharpen it as much and not waste a lot of pencil. And it does seem to be working, so I am learning things. Oh yeah, and like the videos that I was learning about, I guess, our patterns. The guy said, like, he's not a psychologist, but neither am I, but I've read enough psychology or studied behavior enough that I feel like I could talk about that too. He says, I'm not really a psychologist, but it seems to be true that if we want to learn something, if we want to grow, if we don't have that fixed mindset and we have a creative mindset, we just keep trying things. So that's why we're here on this channel, because I thought I had been teaching art classes and doing those sip and paints and stuff like that, which I could still do when we're done with this COVID thing, or get a little freer in our virus precautions and guidelines or whatever. I could probably do that, but I could share some of my thoughts with you and teach a little bit online. And it is very true for me. I don't know if it is for you or everyone that's watching, that I just need to see somebody do it, and then I can really absorb it. I have plenty of books over the years probably 25 years that I've been trying to do this on my own, you know, like not high school or college or something, but because I did take a class in our local community center on drawing and stuff, and I learned a lot that I keep trying to learn. And since we have YouTube, watching someone and listening to what they're saying and why they're doing the things that they do, I think is really important. And especially in the last, I don't know, 5 years, as I got more into this, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to experiment with a lot of things and see what is it that I do like? What is my style? What, you know, like, not necessarily that I have to do it as a business, as for things on consignment or sell my prints, which I, you know, can definitely do, and have, you know, like an Etsy shop with not much on it right now because I keep doing these tutorials. But as I do this YouTube stuff, there are a lot of things that you can learn, Google, whatever. And some of these YouTube channels, it's like a community. They talk about it as a community. So, you know, like if you comment or put on the comments like what you'd like to see, what would be a thing that you're looking to do. There are a lot of artists on there with all different styles, which is also something that I thought was really cool, because I couldn't do that anywhere. I have tons of books on how-tos or whatever, but I do enjoy watching people like Shada Campbell, although her style is not always mine. I do like the line. I like Peter, I think his name is Sheeler or Scheller, or I don't know. And he does line and wash, and I really love line and wash, and I experimented with that for 6 months or a year. I'm still trying to figure out how to do watercolors and find my place in watercolors. I really like the line and wash, and I love colored pencils. So after this series, I'm going to get out my big set and really try some fun things with the colors in the range that I'm really looking for. But I like brightening people's day. I like talking about positive things and ways to improve. And I did this whole series on virtues, like patience and all of those kind of things. Studying, trying to figure out what the comments that were out there, you know, those very learned people, basically you just have to like take a step back and try to be kinder to people and be more understanding, all of these things that we really need to do, and, you know, even teach to our kids that we could use in the world today. I can't tell you how much I think that that is true, that we need to keep this in mind, you know. All right, well, I really like the way that that looks, and I know that's on top, but I'm jealous of it here, so I did have a little bit of a brighter spot in here, so I'm going to do another layer of my green, and then I can start my stem, and because we're pretty much burnished here, so I can get to the part that I want. Really want to do that. I want to do the Vaseline and see what I could do with the watercolors. I'm sure I'm taking a lot of time, guys. I don't know when I started doing this. It was interrupted a little bit, and I did go eat something and all of that, but I feel like I have been working on this project today, between the drawing and the scanning and whatever, that I've been doing it for quite a while. I'm going to use my mini Tombow eraser because I just went into my white here. And normally when I do pictures like this, I will give a little bit of a, I don't know, background halo. I want to give some light color, whether it's a blue or a light green or yellow, something behind it. So here we go. Not bad. I kind of like this. I wish I had a little bit of that in here. I'm not going to erase. Okay, so we're going to go to this spot, and I will start with my light green, I'm going to try and, I am going to use a bit of my point to get into this line. I've been trying to practice also to keep my point and fill in, you know, gently, carefully around the edges of my lines here, because I have a tendency to want to fill in right away. And I'll go over my line, especially for right here, it doesn't really matter. But I'm trying to make sure that I get in those. This is easy because I can go right over that line and make sure there isn't a white line there, but I notice that I have a tendency, just like right now, I don't want to go over the line. Well, then I have this white spot, and I don't want the white spot. Sometimes if you are coloring this and, you know, like when you're a kid, you don't want to have this, I outlined inside and then I filled in. That's what I did when I was a kid. And that is very true. And even like this right now, I can leave that as my highlight, or it will be a light green if I do the dark green in there. But I want to make sure that I go lightly on these spots and then not have that dark line like I outlined it with the marker, like my drawing. So I want to make sure that I fill in those edges. Now I do have a tendency, just like my white spot that was there, to, I mean, I like drawing, so hinting and drawing, like I'm doing this darker edge and trying to create that rounded shape. So I have a tendency to do directional lines here at this point and create my dark points and go lighter over this middle so that we can see that that is a lighter tone. So now I want to go over the edges to give myself that that dark edge. And you can see I'm just going to go down the side of this line, because I want to get, like, this is our dark side, this is our shadow, and this is our light on this side, because we're imagining that it is crooked in the sun. So the sun's coming from here and going this way, and that's why we have our lighter spots over here. So I am going to keep that in mind, because I already was trying to do my hatch marking. There I go. My hatch marking again, to make this side a little darker, but still keeping in mind that we do have the light coming from this side, and this should look a little rounded. So even though the light's coming from there, there's a shadow under the belly or whatever of that petal or leaf, you know. Just as we did here, we want to keep that in mind. And already now I'm starting to think, oh, I could put some Sharpie hash marks here and create that shadow a little bit deeper, give it more texture or direction. And I don't know if I want to do that this time, because I want to do the Vaseline and I want to see how it will come out. So I'm giving this a little shade, because we know that this is probably not going to get much light when it gets underneath here. We're going to put a little bit of the purple and red so that we can change that color and make it more of a shadow. So I'm even going to go down the side here with a little of the purple. Purple to me is like so versatile, because purple makes a lot of shadows. A lot of things you see in the distance have a purplish tone. When they fade out in the distance, that's one of the colors you'll see is purple. So I did that. I'm going to give it a little shot of red, only because I want to match up with my leaves up there, but I also want to continue mixing those colors together so that they're unified in the picture. Everything has a little bit of the same colors above it. So I'm going over it over it again, and then we'll burnish with the light green again, because I want to keep my shadows. I don't want to make it all dark green. So you can see, oops, went past. you can see that this has created a really neat, almost black color by doing the purple, the dark green, and red, which is really kind of cool as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to go over this side again with the dark green. I can see already that I didn't put purple or red in this spot, and it looks red. That was from my overlap, which you can tell if you do that, that might be a problem because I could still see it. So I'm trying to burnish a little bit with the dark green for the shadow, and then we'll transition with the light green. And I apologize for my cross hatching. I should take a little more time, but I'm getting to that burnishing thing and I'm having a hard time with this paper putting in another layer. I will go over this to burnish with the light one, but I want to get this to look a little bit more like it's in the shadows and hopefully create a transition. It's getting a little better. Now we'll go with our light green. Yeah, I still think I need a little bit of red here so I can get that shadow in and create a little more dimension. Let's see how it goes. See, now that almost looks a little more brown, and the purple will give us more of a gray or black, which is cool, not warm. The red is sort of a cool red. It's not very orangey or bright. Oh, we're almost there. Okay, now I can get my cotton swabs. Yay! I think I'm going to quit there. Now I can get my cotton swabs, and like I had said before, if we're going to go through this with the Vaseline, which I have to say, this looks pretty good. I'm not going to say that looks too bad there. I'm going to like hold it up so maybe you can see. I still see white in the picture. I still see some white dots, but it does look pretty good. So here we go. I'm going to take a new one because we don't want to have one that was contaminated, and I'm getting a little bit of my Vaseline, and I'm going to start with the lightest part of the rose because I can't wait and see how well this will highlight. So I'm only kind of doing the highlights right now because I don't want to contaminate my... I can still see that I have some Vaseline there, but I could also see that it was starting to dry up on my... Sometimes I can't talk when I'm doing this. That's pretty cool. Okay, so we did that part. Now I'm going to turn it and do a little bit of my lighter shadow parts because I am picking up color. I want to make sure that I'm not putting the dark colors. I just want to blend them with those lighter colors, but I don't want to cover the light colors. So we might need a little more Vaseline to get that. I don't know. And I don't want to do it too much because I will be taking off the pigment that I laid down. And that wouldn't be the greatest idea after all of that work. We're just trying to blend it together. So I'm going to do some of these. Quickly go over these. I do have a bit more of my Vaseline on here. I do think that it does blend well because it fills in the spots. There was a little white dot left open there, and I could see that it has changed it, and you can almost see where there's a layer or an edge of that Vaseline there. So hopefully this will look beautiful. And I will take a picture to show you before the in the next video, because this needs to, you know, kind of dry out. You want to be careful where you store this because of the Vaseline. You want to make sure that it's not going to smear. So I would suggest that if you put this away somewhere, you should really put a piece of paper over it so that it doesn't go bad. You can see I went over here and the Vaseline is, it's red, so it wet the paper there. The eraser will take out a lot of things, but I'm sure that that smear is not going to work. Well, I think actually that I want to make sure I don't have any, oh, you could see it that way, all of my pencil strokes. You could see that there's some extra Vaseline on there, and I don't want to leave that on. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to do the green, and then we'll see how it turned out. I'm going to do the lighter part first again. This is not really pointed, so I have to be careful not to go out just like I did there. And then I can go in and blend around that. It almost looks like I could have done a little more in the pigment thing, but I'm not sure that I could with that one. I'm going to see if I can tell. I do have, I mean, it is covered with the Vaseline, and you can see some of it's come off, but not really bad. I'm going to put a little bit here on that light spot and on this light spot, and then I'll have to switch my cotton swab again so I can see how it looks. I can't wait to try this on the watercolor paper and see how it comes out. I might try it on a hot press. I think I have a Canson hot press or an Arch hot press watercolor paper, so it's smoother. The hot press is smoother. So I can see if this would work well with the Gamsol. I also thought about doing the, doing the Crayola watercolor kit first, letting it dry. So like painting it with the watercolors, and then going back over it with the Crayola Colored Pencil to see how it would come out. Well, I have to tell you, this experiment was pretty interesting. You'll find the page here and on my Facebook page, but I have to tell you that I kind of like my first rose with Crayola. So next time I'll have this one filled out with the Prismacolor, and we'll try the Vaseline together. So I'll have most of it done so that I can just show you how it was turning out. And of course that one is going to be very different colors because they're not exactly the same. But thank you for watching. And, like watch the end cards, watch the other parts of this series if you haven't seen it yet, or check out my other videos. Have a blessed day, and don't forget to keep practicing. Hey, don't forget, like and subscribe. It will really help my channel.